Hello, this is Vinay Kumar. I'm a faculty of ethics. So today we are going to discuss about some key concepts which are in the news relating to ethics. Before jumping into the lecture, a brief introduction about me. My name is Vinay Kumar and I have done my graduation from IIT Jodhpur. So after that I have prepared for civil services and then I started my I started my teaching career. So I have a 8 years of experience teaching for UPSC aspirants. Okay, so in today's class, how we are going to proceed when it comes to our today's topic. So in ethics, in today we are going to discuss about, first we will be discussing about nature and source of ethics. What is the nature of ethics and what forms the source of ethics? So the main topic of discussion in today's class is going to be on ethical dimension which is involved around Operation Sindhu. Okay, so the major objective of today's class, the major issues which we are going to discuss is the ethical dimensions, the ethical dimensions which is involved around Operation Sindoor. So before going into Operation Sindoor and before going into the ethical dimension, let us discuss brief ethical aspects in properly understanding Operation Sindoor, in understanding the ethical dimension around this Operation Sindoor. So, nature and source of ethics. So, what is the nature of this paper? See, the major intention why UPSC has included ethics into the syllabus. Initially, ethics was not a part of syllabus. The reason why ethics was included is to test the major issue is to test the aptitude of candidates. Okay, so the major reason is to test the aptitude of examination. See, when we see there are so many achievement based tests. Achievement based test is we are giving you a target. So you have to finish this target. So suppose there is a running marathon. You run for 10 miles and if at all you are the first, you will be the winner. But when it comes to aptitude, aptitude is not only testing it will be testing your capabilities not only in a determined conditions but also from it will look your capability, your your aptitude to able to emerge victorious among the futuristic conditions also. So is your capabilities good enough? Is your capability good enough in futuristic challenges? Tomorrow you will be giving the position of a district collector. So your entire district will be in your under your control. So what might be the challenges which might emerge? So if at all you have that aptitude, then only you can address those challenges. That is the reason why the nature of this paper is to test your aptitude rather than it is an achievement based test. So many students are not able to understand this basic idea. Ethics is an aptitude test. Ethics is not an exam. Ethics is not a paper where you cram and where by cramming you are going to clear this examination. You have to brainstorm, you have to understand, you have to think, you have to develop that critical thinking, you have to develop that cognitive abilities. Thereby, you can clear this exam. So that is the reason why I always discuss this with my students that this paper is about wisdom rather than knowledge. So this paper is about wisdom rather than knowledge. What do you understand by this statement? See, knowledge is that, okay, so today you will be making some promises to your friends or some other people. So knowledge is that you have to fulfill those promises. But when it comes to wisdom, wisdom is that you are not only knowledge is one, you will fulfill those promises. But when it comes to wisdom is one which will make you not to make such promises, which will restrict your wisdom will restrict you to not to make promises, because in the future there might be different circumstances where you might not fulfill your promises. That is why this paper is about wisdom. So when can you how can you gain this wisdom? How can you gain that experience? How can you understand this ethics clearly? So every year, thousands of people are writing mains, but only few people are able to score marks above 150. The reason why they are not able to score marks when it comes to ethics paper is they are not understanding the keywords. Okay, as you know, this paper is about 250 marks, and when it comes to 250 marks, in 125 marks you will have the theory based section, and rest 125 in section B you will have case study based questions. So students, aspirants are not able to understand the underlying meanings of the keywords. So what students are doing is they are cramming these keywords and they are trying to repeat that in examination. Unfortunately, the evaluator will understand whether you have understood the concept or whether you have mugged up that concept. So this is what I always emphasize with my students, that rather than cramming the topics, you have to understand. So that is the reason why in my classes, when I am discussing the keywords, when we are discussing about what are beliefs, so what are values, what are ethics, what are morals. So I'll try to first explain them, then I'll try to define. So unlike like other topics where you start with the definition, but when it comes to ethics, what is needed is before going into the definition, before understanding the definition, you have to understand what is this word. Okay, then you can able to understand that. So this is how you are supposed to prepare when it comes to ethics, because the nature of this paper is nothing but it is focusing on you building your aptitude knowledge rather than your achievement. Okay, so that is how you have to discuss. First you have to understand the subtlety with respect to words. Okay, how beliefs are different from values, how beliefs form a core understanding of values. So when you know these keywords, so in my classes you will be understanding that when we are talking about core beliefs, what are all the core beliefs? These core beliefs will turn into values. Okay, when we are talking about values and attitude, so attitude is nothing but manifestation of these values. So this type of subtle understanding you have to develop when it comes to keywords. So, and you see, based on these keywords only, we see case studies are being asked. So what is the proper way to study ethics is first understand the keywords, then write your own definition of those keywords. This is utmost important. When we are talking about ethics, first you have to understand the keyword, then you have to write your own definition. How we can come to with a good definition is, first you have to understand what is the difference between beliefs, what is the difference between values, what is the difference between values and attitude, and what is the difference between attitude and human behavior. Attitude is nothing but how you evaluate a person, how are you evaluating a situation. So based on this, you will have positive attitude, you are going to have negative attitude also. So attitude is how we act, that is attitude. When we are talking about human behavior, how we ought to act is attitude, how we actually act is human behavior. So this is how you have to understand the subtle differences between these keywords. Okay, so that is where this paper is focused. This paper is about wisdom rather than knowledge. Now moving forward, so this is the nature of this paper. So unfortunately, many aspirants are not able to understand this nature of this paper and they are starting preparation. So first things you have to understand. Now when we are talking about sources of ethics, okay, so what forms the basis of ethics? So where are we bringing this ethics into limelight? How we are bringing ethics? So ethics is nothing but ethics will discuss into the ethical issues are involved underlying history. Ethics are involved in polity. Ethics are involved in international relations. Okay, social issues also. We see this form as a source of ethics. Now when you can ask, sir, how can a social issue form a source of ethics? Now when we are talking about social issue, you might be knowing about gender discrimination. You might be having about idea about gender discrimination. Now, as we know that in a society where equality has to be prevailed, gender discrimination is unethical. Gender discrimination should not be encouraged, but unfortunately, gender discrimination gender discrimination is becoming is a major issue in Indian society. On the same lines, when we are talking about patriarchy, okay, patriarchy, male domination. So gender discrimination. So there was a question which is asked whether it might be male domination when we are talking about how patriarchy, how male domination is leading to social issues like dowry. Okay, how this male domination is leading to how this gender discrimination, how this patriarchy is leading to issues like dowry, how this patriarchy is leading to issues like domestic violence. So based on these issues, you see, we will be looking into the ethical dimension, ethical connotations around these social issues. Now, how polity forms a source of ethics. When we are talking about polity, constitution is nothing but constitution is a book of law, rules. Okay. On the same lines, when we are talking about ethics, don't you know that ethics is nothing but ethics is also basic precepts how we have to be, how we have to uphold right and wrong in the society. So this is how, whether it might be polity, whether it might be fundamental rights, whether it might be DPSP forms the conscience of the constitution. So when we are talking about morals is conscience of individual, how an individual should guide his behavior on a rightful path. You understand my point? So that is how this polity, whether it might be social issues, these form the basic or the sources of ethics. So history, polity, international relations, social issues, psychology, public administration, environment and ecology. Now we are talking about sustainable development. Sustainable development means nothing but we should focus on we should emphasize on our needs. We should be staying away from our greeds. So greedful behavior leads to exploitation of nature. Exploitation of nature is unethical practice. So this is how you see when we are talking about science and technology. Nowadays we are talking about cloning. We are talking about nuclear warheads, nuclear science. Okay, we are talking about artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, regulation of artificial intelligence, technology of artificial intelligence. Unregulated artificial intelligence leads to unethical practices. So this is how we have to understand that these all core areas form as a source of ethics. So in today's class, the major area of focus in today's class is going to be around international relations. So we will be looking into ethics in international relations. So the major core area of today's discussion is ethics in international relations. So first we will understand the basics of ethics in international relations. Then we will look into the ethical dimension of Operation Sindoor. Now, ethics in international relations. Whenever we are talking about international relations, so as you know, the certain basics with respect to international relations, no one country can stay isolated. When we are talking about international relations between one country and other country is utmost important. And in a globalized world, when the world is turning into a global village, so relations with other countries is very much important. But when you are talking about relations with other countries, we know that every nation have its own interest. So when it comes to international relations, the conflict about one nation's interest with other nation interest will lead to conflicts. At times, these conflicts, when there is a diplomatic failure, these conflicts will lead to war. So today's topic of discussion is about these wars. Okay, so when we are talking about ethics in international relations, so how a leader or how a country should uphold their moral principles in upholding the sovereignty of the country, in upholding the peace in the world. peace in the world is very much important. Until and unless when peace is not established, until and unless peace is not established in the society, surviving of mankind will be at stake. Okay, so if peace is not prevailing in the society, the arms race will be increasing. Increasing arms race is a threat to a society. So that is a reason why how moral principles should be upheld to promote peace, to uphold sovereignty, the ultimate right of the people when it comes to one nation. Its own territorial integrity should be protected. Its borders should be protected. There should not be any cross-border interferences. Okay, sovereignty, non-violence and human rights. So when we are talking about ethics in international relations, so we will be looking about peace, we will be looking about justice, upholding justice amongst all the countries is also very much important. Sovereignty, upholding sovereignty is very much important. Promoting non-violence is very much important. This is where you see in international relations, that is the reason why diplomacy plays a key role. Okay, so when we are talking about ethics in international relations, what are all the issues which will be discussed? So, is war ever justified? Is war ever justified? Today's topic of discussion is majorly centered around this discussion, as India under Operation Sindoor is engaging a war. Okay, now you have to understand that is war ever justified? So, under the limelight of Operation Sindoor, we will see that yes, the war on terror is justified because war on terror is affecting India's sovereignty, affecting justice. Okay, you see 26 unharmed civilians, tourists have been killed. So, to uphold justice in the society, we see war on terror is justified. So, what type of wars is justified? We'll be discussing about in this ethics in international relations. Okay, is war ever justified? What is a just war? Recently, when you see through media briefing, okay, through media briefing, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, through media briefing, Prime Minister has emphasized on a key word called new normal. So, we in our class today we will be discussing what is this concept of new normal under the context of Operation Sindoor. So, is war ever justified? What is just war? Okay, what is just war? Okay, so now we are saying that Operation Sindoor is a just war because it is being conducted, it is being done, it is being operated by Government of India to promote justice against, to seek the justice against human rights violation, against inhuman killing which is being done by terrorists. Okay, so what should states, how should states treat each other? How states are supposed to treat each other by upholding this moral philosophy. So that forms the core context of ethics in international relations. What obligations do states have towards people across borders? So what should be the obligations of the states across borders? In this dimension only we have to discuss about cross-border terrorism. So we see our neighbor is involving in cross-border terrorism. Okay, so is this the responsibility? Is this the obligation? Is this the duty of our neighboring country? Rather, the duty of neighboring country is to make sure that people of the other country are living in peace by upholding, by promoting good livelihood measures. That is a reason why, as a moral obligation, as a peaceful neighbor, India always upheld its duty towards the neighboring country. That is the reason why you see Indus Water Treaty. Although majority of the water is being used by Pakistan, And India, being an upper riparian state, as its responsible neighboring country, upheld this Indus Water Treaty. You should know that Indus Water Treaty is one of the most successful Indus Water Treaties in the world. This was the attitude, this was the ethical philosophy which was upheld by India towards neighboring country. But in return, what India got? So these are all the issues which we will be discussing in today's class. So what are all the ethical dilemmas which are involved? Okay, so now you have understood the ethical dilemmas which are involved is peace. Ethical dilemmas which are involved in international relations. Ethics in international relation is whether it might be peace, whether it might be security of the nation, and it also stability of the nation. So these are all the ethical dilemmas which are involved in ethics in international relations. That is the reason why you see UPSC has asked a question in 2017, okay, around this question: strength, peace and security are the pillars of international relations. What are that? Strength, peace and security are the pillars of international relations. Just now we have discussed about ethical dilemmas. Now what is the ethical dilemma over here? Ethical dilemma over here. Now when you look around these three words, when we are talking about these words, when you are talking about peace, prevailing peace in the society is very much important. Okay, for every nation, for any country to progress, for any country to prosper, upholding peace, peaceful neighbors is also very much important. Promoting that country, promoting peace, that country believing in peace and non-violence is utmost important. On the same lines, that peaceful neighbors are also very much important. But when we are talking about peace and when we are talking about these two words, stability and security, you know, every country which want to promote stability and security will focus on developing strong military and developing military equipments. Now, when you look at these two words, you will understand the contradictory over here. When we are talking about peace and when we are talking about stability and security is based on military building, based on protecting our territorial borders, developing radars such that we can destroy, we can identify incoming drones, we can identify incoming missiles. So the question has been asked in UPSC is around this dilemma: how can a country promote peace and how can a country promote stability and security? Unfortunately, you have to understand these are two contrasting ideas. So now developing a relations, okay, developing a proper understanding amongst these three keywords are very much important. That is the reason why UPSC has asked this question. Now, on the same lines, the present, this question of UPSC reflects the present situation of India. India is a peace-loving country. India want to uphold peace. On the same lines, India wanted to promote stability for its safety and security and stability for its citizens. Unfortunately, because of terrorism, we are not able to promote this. So now, how to resolve, how to understand this ethical dilemma is, you have to understand that if a country is stable, if a country is secure, then only that country is peaceful. So now what is that understanding which is developed is military strength and strong military and strong military equipments are very much essential for a peaceful country. Okay, so when we are talking about peace, please try to understand, when we are talking about peace, peace is not a country which is weak cannot afford itself to be a peaceful country, because a weak country will be perceived as a opportunity by neighboring countries to attack and exploit its resources. That is the reason why the understanding the ethical dilemma, resolving this ethical dilemma, how you are supposed to understand is Peace in a society can be prevailed when there is stability and security of the nation is being promoted. So this is how you have to understand. Even moving forward, so one of the greatest fighter, okay, many people might be knowing about Bruce Lee. Okay, so Bruce Lee, when a question was asked by his disciples, okay, when he was training his students, one of our student asked him his question, sir, like what is your why there is a need to develop what you say military training and all. Okay, what is your perspective, what is your opinion on war, what is your opinion on war, and what is your opinion on peace? So he has given this beautiful quote. So it is better to be a warrior in garden than a gardener in a war. So you have to understand, try to decode this quote. So this was a quote which is very much in line, with this question. Strength, peace and security are the pillars of international relations. Discuss. So what was the quote is, you have to be a warrior in a garden. Okay, so means nothing but you have to develop that qualities of warrior. Okay, even a disciplined, trained and capable person who choose peace. So warrior in a garden means a person who has that what you say skill to face war at any time. But the point here is that person should observe restraint. Okay, that person should observe restraint. By observing restraints, he will promote peace. A weak person cannot promote peace. A strong, capable person who is ready to fight at any cost can always promote. By observing restraint means nothing but you have the power, you have the capability, you have the skill to defeat your enemy, to suppress your enemy. But what the beauty lies in restraining your energy. So when we are talking about India being a peace-loving country, which always, okay, our foreign policy also was such that as we are peace-loving country, we made sure that we have the military capability, we have the military power. We always refrained. Okay, we always used the restraint, but this restraint was used as an symbol of weakness. That is a reason why, you see, that is a reason why India has conducted this Operation Sindoor. So a country can uphold peace, a country can live at peace if at all it is militarily capable, it is powerful, it has the skill to attack enemy at any instance. But India, being a peace-loving country, it restrained itself. So they are prepared for danger. India is always prepared for danger, okay, but prefer a peaceful life. So it is better to be this person, warrior in a garden, than a gardener in a war. A gardener in a war means nothing but a person who is very gentle, soft attitude, who don't have the, what you say, who don't have the, what you say, skill to wage war, who don't predict what you say, antagonism of enemies. So this is what happens if at all you are a gardener in war. You will be exploited. Your weakness, your gentle attitude, your unpreparedness will become a tool for suppression by enemy countries. So that is a reason why you have to understand that for a country to be peaceful, security and stability, military strength, military capabilities, perceiving danger, anticipating antagonism is very much important for a country to be peaceful. So that is what here you have to understand a very key word called deterrence. What is this? Deterrence means creating that fear factor. Okay, so if there are two powerful persons, okay, now imagine that there was one person who wants something from that other person. As he is equally powerful, he will think twice before attacking. You understand my point? So deterrence is creating that fear factor. So India always believed in this deterrence. Okay, but under the concept of deterrence also, now we have earlier the deterrence policy of India was narrowly interpreted. Now we see it was broadly interpreted. That is the reason why now we see Narendra Modi under this Operation Sindoor has emphasized that we will have zero tolerance towards terrorists. On the same lines, we will not accept any more the blackmailing of Pakistan through nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons was used as a shadow, nuclear weapons was used as a shadow, and under this shadow, terrorism was promoting in Pakistan. So recently we have strongly given a message to the world that we are not going to be afraid of nuclear blackmailing. You understand my point? So that is a reason why this, what you say, deterrence is very much important. So peace is ideal. Yes, peace in every society. Everyone expect a society to be peaceful, but the ability to defend, okay, the ability to defend, act with strength and protect oneself is essential. So these are the prerequisites to uphold peace. This you have understood. I think you have understood that. So the ability to defend, the strength to develop a strength and to protect oneself is essential to uphold peace. Okay. So, and for that matter, preparedness is not an aggression, it is wisdom. Okay, anticipating the animosity around Indian borders and India being prepared is a wisdom on the part of India. Being peaceful is not same as being helplessness. So this is how you are supposed to answer this ethical dilemma around peace, security and stability. Okay, with this understanding, we will understand Operation Sindoor and Operation ethical dimension in under Operation Sindoor. So, you know, after you see Uri attack and against Pulwama attack also, India have conducted this Balakot airstrike, okay, against terrorist hideouts. And after Uri has set a new level of India's policy, India's foreign policy and India's policy towards Pakistan and India's policy towards terrorism. So Uri has set that precedence, but Operation Sindoor has set a new benchmark when it comes to countering Pakistan and countering terrorism. So what is that benchmark? Your Operation Sindoor signaled the policy's latest benchmark. Okay. Now, it has three-pronged strategies. One is, in the event of any further terror attack, India would go after the roots of the outfit in Pakistan. So, immediately, whether it might be about after Taj attacks, Indian diplomatic channels were engaged with Pakistan diplomatic channels and have given concrete evidence about Pakistani terrorist hideouts. But we see Pakistan could not take an action against these hideouts. So India was always trying to use diplomatic channels, but now India itself engaged. That is the reason why this is the first time in the history why Operation Sindoor is not only not only hailed amongst Indians, but also all the world leaders have strongly supported this Operation Sindoor. This is the first time in a world where you see a nuclear weapon country. We attacked a nuclear weapon country. Not only we attacked them in border areas, we entered into their heartland areas and we attacked them. And the beauty, the ethical dimension of this Operation Sindoor is India has showed to the world that at the will of India, we can attack any territory in any parts of Pakistan, whether it might be Rawalpindi, whether it might be Islamabad, or whether it might be in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Okay, so in all these areas, India entered and India conducted these strikes. India has conducted strikes at will. India have conducted strikes on terrorist hideouts. India has conducted on military military bases which were supporting terrorism. India did not attack military bases blindly. India attacked only military bases which were providing safe shelter to terrorists. So that is the ethical dimension, ethical connotation to this Operation Sindoor. So India demonstrated its capability to the world that it can strike at will. But India also demonstrated to the world that we are reframing from further attacks. Our attack is non-aggressive. Our attack is only to uphold peace and justice in India, where we see 26 common people, 26 civilians who have been killed. So one thing, in the event of any further attack, India would go after the roots of the outfits, terror outfits in Pakistan. Next, the country has shown zero tolerance for nuclear blackmail. That is the reason why we entered into the heartland of Pakistan and we finished those terror outfits. And 3, India would not differentiate between this is very much important. India will not differentiate between terror outfits and government sponsoring this terror. So we will consider whichever government is sponsoring those terrorists, we will equate them to terror outfits or terror leaders. So this is the message which is well spoken by Prime Minister Modi. Okay. Next, what are the ethical dimensions? So this Operation Sindoor, okay, so this Operation Sindoor has established the new normal. Okay, now what is this new normal? What is the ethical dimensions of this new normal? Ethical dimensions of new normal. So I have taken this content directly. I have taken this content directly from Press Information Bureau. Okay, most of this content which I am discussing today, I have taken directly from Press Information Bureau. Okay, now what is the ethical dimension of new normal? So India has upheld the just war principles. Just war principles is India only targeted terrorism, and India made sure that no civilian casualty. You understand my point? Minimizing the harms to civilians. Okay. Commitment to responsible warfare. Commitment to responsible warfare is one of the moral responsibility of a country, of a country towards other countries. This is what is called as an ethics in international relations. India upheld this responsible warfare by only targeting those outfits and focusing on zero civilian casualties with the focused objective just against terrorism. Okay, so this is first ethical dimension. Next, India have drawn a strategic red line. What is this? Through Operation Sindoor, okay, Operation Sindoor, India drawn a new red line. If terror is a state policy, okay, if a state is sponsoring this terrorism, so we are not going to differentiate between terror outfits and the country which is sponsoring those terrorism. So this is also very credible measure taken against a country which is sponsoring terrorism. Next, equal punishment for terrorists and their sponsors. Okay, India has made this crystal clear that we are going to treat that state sponsoring state sponsoring terrorism and those terror outfits. Okay, next, utmost ethical dimension you have to understand is, under this operation we have imposed self-imposed restraint to avoid any collateral damage. Self-imposed restraint. So now you have to understand that why Operation Sindoor, why India have gained this global significance or global limelight is because India at will has attacked any territories in Pakistan. India have attacked those air bases also which were sheltering terrorists. Okay, so-called Pakistan was saying that these air bases were bomb-proof, missile-proof. We have attacked even those terrors. Okay, India not only attacked this terrorist organizations and military equipments in Pakistan, but India made sure that it restrained itself. Okay, India has the capability to hit at any target, but India upheld its moral obligation towards a country by focusing on no collateral damage. So this is the beauty of India's Operation Sindoor. And India also was successful in facing this retaliation from Pakistan. That is the reason why you see no Pakistan missile could pose a threat to India's territories. Next, highlighting operational success, Operation Sindoor's effectiveness was communicated with precision. Okay, now another beauty of Operation Sindoor is we have promoted transparency. Okay, this statement is trying to say we have promoted transparency and accountability. So we have clearly whatever targets have been destroyed, 11 military whatever air bases are been targeted, whatever terrorist outfits, places have been clearly immediately after Operation Sindoor. And we see Press Information Bureau has released those hideouts and released those military bases which has been attacked. And India through Operation Sindoor has also credibly focused or stopping this misinformation about India's Operation Sindoor also. We effectively retaliated against misinformation and mispropaganda which is or false propaganda which has been promoted against India. And another thing is humanitarian consideration was given more primemost importance. Military operation must protect potential humanitarian impacts. Ethical conduct on part of India requires measures to prevent civilian casualties and address the needs of affected populations. Okay, so this is how we have upholded the moral obligations. We have upholded ethics in in international relations through Operation Sindoor. And for that matter also, we were immediately, whenever we also have given importance to diplomatic channels. Immediately when Pakistan could not bear the mighty Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Indian Navy, immediately they have called, okay, DGMO of Pakistan has called India. India responded and India have conducted these talks. You understand my point? And for that matter, India also imposed this ceasefire. For that matter, you know, the ceasefire was not on India's fight against terrorism. Ceasefire was on ceasefire. We have agreed for this ceasefire, but although India emphasized that this ceasefire was not on war against terrorism. You understand my point? So we upheld diplomacy and also we always promoted these peace building measures, whether it might be after 1947-48 war, whether it might be 1965 war, whether it might be 1971-72 Shimla agreement. So always India believed in diplomacy and always India believed in peace building measures. So okay, so when policy emphasized military readiness, ethical international relations advocated for sustained diplomatic efforts, which always India has emphasized. So it upholds the moral responsibility to seek peaceful solution. It was on the part of India to uphold this moral responsibility. Okay, so India's response to Pahalgam attack stood firmly on legal and moral grounds. So this is what I am trying to say. Legal grounds, you have to understand that we did not attack on any civilian territories. We only made sure that only terrorist outfits were destroyed. Okay, history will remember it as principled. Now, history will remember Operation Sindoor as principled, calibrated retaliation with emphasizing on restraint. Restraint is also utmost emphasized. Okay, calibrated retaliation shaped by leadership, ethics and strategic precision. Okay, so it was not a merely military camp, but a multi-dimensional assertion of India's sovereignty. For that matter, ethics in international relations. In the initially, I said that upholding sovereignty, not posing a threat to any other country's sovereignty is very much important. As our sovereignty is being our sovereignty is being questioned. You understand my point? For that matter, you see Trump tried to promote himself that I have mediated this peace talks. But Narendra Modi emphasized that when it comes to relations with Pakistan, you see, until we will be only negotiating with Pakistan on the issue of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. You understand my point? And the resolution of Pakistan towards finishing their terror outfits in those countries. You understand my point? So India always through Operation Sindoor upheld its own sovereignty. Okay, by saying that as this issue, Operation Sindoor is not an issue of Kashmir. It is it is an operation which has been conducted. Recent speech of Narendra Modi, when we decode those speech, when you understood this speech, where this speech has clearly mentioned, this Operation Sindoor is not about Kashmir. It is about terrorist outfits which are been there in Pakistan. So, India's sovereignty, resolve and global standing. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's decisive leadership, India demonstrated a new paradigm, one that blends restraint with strength. So, we are focusing on building strength, but we are using this restraint. As I said, strength and stability is important. Strength and stability is important for peace. So, when you are talking about warrior in a garden, okay, you need to build strength. You need to be ready at any front, but you should have that strength. So, India has upheld this quote that India is always a warrior in a garden. Okay, and precision with purpose. By targeting terror networks and their state sponsor with unprecedented clarity, India sent an ambiguous message. Terrorism will be met with swift and proportionate response. Okay, so Operation Sindoor is India's new policy against terrorism and our unwavering pledge for justice. So these are the ethical dimensions around Operation Sindoor. Okay, so this is how you have to look into when we are talking about ethics. In ethics, there might be so many static case studies, but nowadays, when you look into ethics paper, okay, the current issues which is happening, the current polity related, what is that ethical dimension, whether it might be Sabarmala issue, whether it might be temple entry movement, whether it might be when we are talking about Parda system. So, what are the ethical dimensions around these issues? Okay, so this is how you have to prepare for ethics when it comes to Operation Sindoor. So, ethical dimensions surrounding Operation Sindoor. For suppose tomorrow there is a question, what is your opinion? And UPSC nowadays is majorly focusing on opinion-ended, okay, open-ended questions or your opinion. UPSC, when it comes to mains, it is nothing but you have to write your opinion on a certain issue and come. So, there is a high chance that in coming mains, okay, they might give the ethical dimensions. What are the ethical learnings around Operation Sindoor? Because already UPSC has given a question about peace, security and stability. So, extension of that, there might be a question which might be asked in UPSC mains on Operation Sindoor or India's measures against terrorism. So, India also diplomatically engaged with the world, saying that the measures under Operation Sindoor is a measure to control global threats of terrorism. You understand my point? So, India successfully has promoted this idea that Pakistan is harboring terrorists, even through United Nations resolutions, even in United Nations platform. India has emphasized this. So, this is how you are supposed to write an answer when it comes to ethical dimensions involved in ethics in international relations and precisely ethical dimensions around Operation Sindoor. Thank you.